And here I am 8 minutes into this show, and I'm already primarily through this stuff. MVP Paul Daley. Paul Daley is the man who once got wrestled to a degree where he was heckling Bellator during the show. He was heckling Bellator as Douglas Lima was laying on top of him. I think maybe it was John Fitch. And he threw, I think, 0 punches in the first round of this fight. Miserable. Somebody says prelims were great tonight, 6-7 finishes. Usually they are on Bellator. Usually they're really inexperienced mismatches. And they are pretty good to that degree. This fight sucked as well. MVP didn't do a whole lot. He doesn't have great takedown defense. He'll cross his feet up a lot instead of spreading his legs out up against the cage. And with his body composition, that is a recipe for disaster. I don't think that that was a very, very good idea. Now, I want to talk after this fight about why it happened where it did, because that's confusing enough. Paul Daley gave this fight away. He wrestled, by the way, keep in mind, the same guy that harassed Bellator about wrestling. And we have a lot of people saying, this showed that MVP is overrated. MVP won the goddamn fight, guys. He won the fight. For better or for worse, doesn't really matter. You can say he's overrated all you want, but he won the fight. He made an effort to put forth some action. But what confused me was when he broke free, cracked Daley with an elbow, or I think it was a knee, he then initiated a cage clinch. Now, he did land that takedown and threw some punches or some strikes down on Daley. But, man, this wasn't good. In the third round, Daley went right back to the takedown, but MVP was able to take the back, was nowhere near finishing Daley on a rear naked choke. It was not in, nowhere close. Ended up landing some nice elbows. Those are not 12-6 elbows. Not 12-6 elbows. Quit saying that, please. And MVP stole the fight in the 5th round by taking that back control. So I did think that MVP earned that fight. He did come back and win it. I'm so much happier that he's going to be facing Douglas Lima than Paul Daley at this stage. Daley showed an incredible amount of respect to Paul Daley, or not Paul Daley, Douglas Lima. That was very surprising to me because he doesn't really show respect to a lot of people. But Paul Daley, or MVP rather, is a good indication of how Bellator can bring somebody up slowly. But man, they got to develop the skill set. Could you imagine MVP fighting John Fitch? Well, if he doesn't crack him, he's losing that fight. Bottom line. Now let's talk about this weird decision to put this fight in Uncasville, Connecticut. This should have been the biggest fight, at least from a hype standpoint, in UK MMA history. And they have the balls. Scott Coker has the balls to say, well, we didn't do it in the UK because it was too hard to find a venue. It was too hard for us to find a place, and he put it off on distributors, and he put it off on venues and all this stuff. No, my man. No. You got to fight in Dublin, Ireland next week. That's going to be on Paramount and DAZN. James Gallagher's headlining that show. Why? How about last week? You had a show in Newcastle. I think it was an 11,000-seat arena. No, you didn't want to do that? You couldn't ran it there? What? I don't care. They could have made that work. There's no reason they couldn't have made that work. So instead, Uncasville, Connecticut got this. You mean to tell me that this fight with Aaron Chalmers and Patricky Pitbull underneath it would have done great in the UK? It would have done fine. It would have done just fine. Probably would have made more money off of it over there than they did here. I don't have the attendance figures yet. You did not need this fight in Uncasville, Connecticut. You did not need 2 shows back to back. Man, that was such a weird... Bellator makes some really weird decisions, man.